Lyanna Bertelson, will you wave, please? Thank you. Okay, so who would like to go first to introduce yourself? Lyanna or Gary?
I'll go first.
Okay,
Okay, good. Thank you, Sally. Thank you very much for the league and the library for sponsoring this. My name is Gary Lusin. I'm been in Bozeman since 1981, business owner for almost 40 years. And I've been on the Bozeman School Board for 16 years and hopefully have another 3 years. I've had 2 children go through the Bozeman school system, on through post-secondary and graduate schools. Very well successful. They're in Bozeman and hope to have grandchildren attending school in the future. So I'm very passionate about continuing the good work of our district. Getting through things. It's been a rough year this past year. And in addition to school board involvement, I'm also on the Montana School Boards Association Board of Directors, representing our school board. I've been on that for almost 10 years, so I get that perspective. And I'm also on the Dean's Advisory Council for the Dean of Education at Montana State University. So I feel like I've got a broad perspective of educational issues at all levels, and certainly have a passion for continuing to address those. Okay, I'll stop.
thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Lyanna?
All right. Hi. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Public Library for hosting this forum. My name is Lyanna Bertelson, and I am an educator, I'm a parent, and I'm an involved community member. And K-12 education is my I've been a teacher since 1989, which includes my 10 years as a BSD 7 teacher at CGMS and what was once the Wilson Science and Technology Magnet School in the early 90s. I've taught at MSU. I have a tutoring business, and for the last 4 years, I've worked for the nonprofit called Illustrative Mathematics, where I work with teachers in schools all over the country to implement new math curriculum. My 3 kids have attended and still go to Bozeman schools. We were a part of the Irving and Chief Joseph, Sacagawea, and Bozeman High School communities. My oldest daughter is about to graduate from college. I have a son who's about to graduate from Bozeman High, and I have a daughter who is a 10th grader. In the 30 years that I've lived here, I have volunteered in the schools and the community. Currently, I am a co-leader with the Bozeman Task Force to advance the safety and status of all women and girls. And Bozeman is a thriving district in many respects. And although we get many things right, Bozeman is not perfect. This year has shown that we have challenges to address. I've appreciated all the community engagement, and it was evident that there were competing needs and demands that were expected of our school professionals and the desires of the community. I'm committed to listen deeply and openly and to be transparent in all my communications, to work collectively to search for creative solutions to our most pressing issues, because that's what's going to benefit our school communities and our students the most. I know that I can hold that space and bring my voice and my perspectives as an educator, parent, and a volunteer to the school board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And who would like to go first to answer the prepared question? Let me repeat the question. We sent the candidates last week the following question. Why are you running for the school board? And if you're elected, what will be your priorities? And who would like to answer that first? You have 2 minutes apiece.
Well, I'll jump in and go first. I'm running for the school board, asking for another 3 years on the board to continue the work that we've been doing the last many years in the district, developing a very high-level quality educational program. And I would like to continue that. I think there's obviously many challenges we've run into in the last year, which have exposed many different things. And I think our district, teachers, students, parents, large majority have really stepped up and navigated through that well, even though there's been very many challenges and difficulties. And out of that comes the future of what we're going to do. And I guess my priority for the next year to 3 years, first of all, is to get do a very thorough and good superintendent search to find a good leader that fits into our Bozeman community and honors our culture and our. And beyond that, I want to look at really the educational delivery system. We've got some very innovative thinkers in our district, and I believe there's things we can do in education that can improve the overall education delivery model at many different levels. It's a complicated issue and has to be addressed at many levels. And I believe my experience the last many years dealing with legislation and policy review and being on the board gives me the experience and the expertise to help navigate through those issues and really develop a really good future for the education of our children in Bozeman.
Thank you. Lyanna?
Yeah, so I hope to have the privilege to serve as a school trustee. And I'd say that basically I am a huge supporter of public education because I think that good public schools are really the heartbeat of our community. It's meant everything to me as a parent to have my kids go to high quality schools. And so, when I think about the issues that our community is facing, I think that leadership matters. And one of the priorities I'm interested in is our search for a new superintendent, like Gary said. I was a part of the search for our new chief of police just recently as part of the Bozeman task force. And so that taught me a lot about that process. I'm interested in finding a superintendent who will build trust in the relationships and communication, who will mentor leaders and be able to communicate that vision to the community and work with parents. So all those are important to me. And the other thing that I'm really interested in is, while are at the center of what we do as a school system, just behind that are our teachers. And like it's super important that we have teachers that feel supported, that they have a safe environment to work in, that they have room for to grow professionally, that they feel like they're valued in both their compensation and their working conditions. Because when we have some great teachers, and so when they feel supported, they're the ones who are going to deliver on the purpose and the goals of our school, which is to ensure that there's high achievement for every student to succeed and make a difference in a rapidly changing world and community. And so that brings me to the last point, that our community is growing. And so, what's coming to light are some of the disparities in wealth, in things that are systemic in nature, and those who are marginalized. And I want to ensure that we have equitable resources and access for everybody, and that people feel that they have a voice, that they can use it and engage in the process. And those are my priorities if I'm a trustee.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, someone asked me early on if the group would be allowed to ask questions. And indeed you can. That is the heart of our forums, is the audience asking questions. So here's how to submit your question. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a toolbar. If you can't see it, try moving your mouse over the screen or press the Alt button. The toolbar should pop up at the bottom. The Q&A feature listed on the toolbar is what you can use to submit your question. So to submit it, select the Q&A button and type in your question and then hit enter to submit. And here are the guidelines for questions. Those of you who know me as a moderator, I've moderated a lot of forums. I ask you humbly and stridently both to ask a question, not make a speech. And if a member of the audience asks a question to be answered yes or no, the candidates will be allowed to qualify or explain their answers. We don't want to trap the candidates into having to just say yes or no. And if a question is asked of a particular candidate, so if you ask Lyanna a question, Gary will be allowed to answer it as well. And each candidate will be given probably, let's do 90 seconds since there are just two of you. So
I don't see a Q&A feature, I see a chat. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, it's the chat. Yeah, it's the chat feature. Is everybody cool with this? You can, I think, can they also raise their hands and say their question? Okay, do the chat. All right, and here,
I submitted my question.
okay, I see one. Here's the first question. Biological boys in girls' sports destroys girls' sports. Do you understand what I should want me to repeat that, Lyanna and Gary, or do you get it? I'll say it again. Biological boys in girls' sports destroys girls' sports. What is your stand?
Well, I guess I'll go first. That's a situation I'm learning more about. And I think from a biological standpoint, there is certainly a change that needs to take place for an individual, for example, a boy competing in girls' sports. But I'm not convinced at this point that that should not be allowed. And I come at this from maybe a different perspective. I'm a licensed physical therapist and I'm a licensed athletic trainer.
Mm.
And treating many, many people in the sports world at all levels, elementary through Olympics, through professional, I have a responsibility to treat everybody equally. And when I factor that perspective into my thought process, I think having individuals, if for whatever reason they need to transition to another gender, and that, and as I understand biologically, it takes a little bit of time, but that can change their physical function and decreases the male ability. And if that's the case, then I would say let them compete and have a life and participate in activities that they have a right to participate in. And as a provider, I would treat them the same as everybody else.
Thank you. Lyanna?
Yeah, I'm looking at the statement, biological boys in girls' sports destroys girls' sports. And I'd say, you know, that's an opinion. I don't know that I see evidence of that statement. And, you know, that being said, I agree with Gary in some respects that there's much that we don't know and don't understand about those who identify as trans. And my understanding is it's something like handedness. And, you know, if we, you know, it may not be apparent on the outside, but how you are on the inside, you know, that's the expression of who you are. But I would say that in sports that, you know, I have daughters who compete in sports, and from my experience, they did not feel threatened by trans athletes. And I think that when I talk about equity, that, you know, when we know better, then we treat people better, that we allow people to compete where they feel comfortable. And it is really in Montana, a small number of athletes that we're talking about. And if female athletes don't feel bothered by this, then I don't think that it's something that we need to be concerned about, that we can be supportive about. You know, I'm willing to understand points of view and to listen to what the issues are, but I think there's, my understanding of it is I don't think that biological boys in girls' sports destroys girls' sports, but I can understand concerns about it, and I'm willing to have conversations and hear what those concerns exactly are, and think about how everybody can compete fairly.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What is your stand on masks?
That was the question, what's our stand on masks?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Lyanna, do you want to go first or?
Go ahead, Gary. I like this back. I'm comfortable.
Well, I've developed a pretty clear view of masks over this time period, and I fully support the use of masks. And why do I do that? One, I'm a healthcare provider, so I listen to the science. It's been well documented that when two people wear masks, they can sit up to 1 foot apart and have almost no spread of the virus. And that's essential, particularly in schools. So we started with 6 feet distance, and that's been reduced down to 3 feet, which is much more manageable. But I go back to a neighbor of ours whose daughter, a Bozeman High grad, has taught in Taiwan for the last 5 years. Taiwan's population about 24 million. Last year, when the virus began spreading around the world, they immediately masked up. And by nothing closed down, schools didn't close down, businesses didn't close down. And by, I think in November, they had 73 deaths in the entire country. So I know masks can be very political, ideological, removing our rights, but I personally do not believe that. I felt my rights have not been impinged upon by wearing a mask. And I think for the safety and health of our teachers and our students and our community, it's essential that we comply with masks. And we'll just have to see what the future brings as far as that being held up.
Okay, thank you. And Lyanna, masks. What is your stand on masks?
I think masks are to protect community health. I think that while I see it has been a political issue in many cases, and hearing that conversation, it's really just a matter of science and good hygiene and common sense. I don't personally think that it's difficult to wear a mask, and it's not as much about the protection of me, although it does protect me. It's about not knowing who I'm coming into contact with. And, you know, as far as protecting teachers and just the sheer number of people that come into the classroom and that teachers are involved with, you know, we're protecting the people we're coming in contact with when we wear a mask. I don't know if the person, you know, or teachers also, I don't know if the person that I'm dealing with is someone who has some underlying health conditions. I don't know if that person is someone who has someone in their home who they are concerned, who it could be life-threatening if they, you know, if they catch COVID. And so for me, it's a courtesy to the people in my space. And it's just a small thing that I can do to not only protect me, but to protect others. So you know, at some point it won't feel like this, but for now, that's something that we can do.
Okay. This was sent to us before and also is in the chat room. Can you please explain how you understand the duties of a school board trustee and describe how your experience, not your perspective, your specific experience would contribute to the successful functioning of the board? You want me to repeat that? Yes? Okay, let me run it by again. Can you please explain how you understand the duties of a school board trustee and describe how your experience, not your perspective, your specific experience would contribute to the successful functioning of the board? That's it, guys.
Lyanna, go ahead.
Not it, you're it.
It's the back and forth, Gary, but okay, I'll go ahead and go. I actually have it here in the chat so I can see this.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you can see it.
I've been I've been watching the school board meetings for this past year in particular, because although I'm very familiar with public schools as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a parent, understanding the school board trustee role has been really interesting for me, because basically we listen to the leaders of the district as they have their committees within the schools to that work on policies, that work on programs, that work on curriculum. And my job is to ask questions to understand that and to vote on those. And one of the reasons why Bozeman has been such a good school system, we trust the professionals who are, that's their life's work. They're the ones who have invested in understanding the issues and how to best address them with the kids. So that would be my role as a trustee, is to make sure that I understand those issues and that I ask the appropriate questions. And then as I'm listening to the school district, that I'm able to communicate to the public what that vision is. And so the other half of it is, or part of it is, listening to parents, listening to the needs of the community, and being able to translate what's happening in the district so parents understand, and so that parents' needs and questions are also understood by the school community. So the way that I can contribute is I'm a deep listener, and I'm willing to engage in hard conversations.
Whoops. Okay, Gary?
Yeah, thank you. The role of a trustee is to govern the district. It's not our role to manage or micromanage. So we have to function at a high level. The only individual the trustees hire is the superintendent. So that's really the individual we pay close to and try and work with and help them understand our district. But from my experience being on the board, it takes a few years to really learn all the details of what's important within the district. There's many different issues we need to deal with, and to try and operate the district in a very fiscally responsible way. So we have to attend to the taxpayer voters and communicate with them and for them at the board level. And this past year was a good example of the board getting a wide variety of comments, some very harsh comments from people on certain issues. And when it comes time to vote on those issues, I have no problem making a decision as long as I have well-informed, good information, and I will make the best decision I can make. But my focus is going to be on the students and the teachers in the school district, and make sure our school can continue to provide good education and good social and emotional skills for our students.
Okay. Lyanna? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, next question. What attributes are you seeking in a new district superintendent? And I'm going to tie that to the next question. I think it goes together. How will you vet the new superintendent? So what attributes are you seeking, and how will you vet the new superintendent?
I'll go ahead and go, Gary, since you just spoke. I mentioned this earlier, and I'm very interested in this process. And what's important about the new superintendent is that I'm looking for someone who has, clear leadership skills. And I define leadership as someone who is able to build relationships through trust and communication. A good leader, a good superintendent will be someone who knows how to mentor the leadership within the district, whether it's principals, teachers, parent groups within the community. Lastly, it's someone who's able to communicate that to the bigger community. So those are the qualities I'd look for. And as vetting, I just went through the process with the chief of police as far as recruitment and interviewing, and I've been on those places and hiring teachers and so forth. So I'm wanting to understand what the process is in the school district. I imagine similar as far as recruiting somebody who is a fit for Bozeman, that understands the community, that understands the unique needs of the school, and that's someone who who has those experiences to bring our district forward.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this is my fourth superintendent search. And you know, you learn something from each one of those. And you know, just as a business owner and handling employees for the last 40 years, you can, you know, once you get involved with people and you see them work, you learn a lot more about them. So my intention of a new principal or a new superintendent is really to have an individual that understands our community, is willing to listen to people within the community and within the district, someone that will work collaboratively with everybody as best they can, someone that will understand and support our long-range strategic plan and the benefit of our district using a consensus process to resolve significant issues. And really, probably the major element would be communication. Can that individual really communicate well with different individuals within the district, students, people within the community, and really be the voice of the district in a very good manner? Vetting them, I can tell you that it's already on my mind. If I'm elected to the board, I will do a deep vetting of every individual that applies for our board. We don't know what the pool is going to be like. Bozeman is fortunate that we do have people really wanting to work here and live here in our district. We have a well-respected district around the state and around the country. And so I think we need to, the individual needs to be vetted very well. All candidates need to be vetted and go to a deeper level and really find out how that individual operates, what their leadership skills are like, what their communication skills are like, what their vision of education is. You know, does it fit with Bozeman's? You know, what we want to do and what we expect and what our community expects from the superintendent of our schools. So the vetting process will be rigid and it will be complete. And my guess is that it will may be challenging to those candidates for our superintendent position, but I think we need to do.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What do you see as the board's role in restoring trust among various stakeholders in the BSD 7 community?
Well, I'll go first, I guess. You know, that trust is a critical element of any organization like a school district. So we can't function well unless we have good community trust. And in my experience on the board, there's been great effort at the administrative level to do things in a very transparent and trustworthy way. And we kind of measure that by what our levies do. And our levies have been very successful. And so we really appreciate that within the community. And thank you all. But we need to have some good communication at all levels within administration, to students, parents, for sure. And I think that's something that has improved over the last few months. And that's something I definitely believe needs to continue down the road. And we will work very, very hard to win back the trust of the community. And certainly welcome any feedback, information, ideas that people may have. And that doesn't mean that all of those will be accepted, but we do value those comments and people engaging in our district. And it's very healthy and it's beneficial. And I know our board will make the best decisions moving forward.
Okay, Lyanna?
Yeah, there's so much I agree with what Gary is saying, that that, you know, trust in our with the community and with system and everybody involved is a really important factor of what will make our school system stronger. And this year was such a confusing and difficult year, and I understand and heard that there were many parents who were frustrated by communication and what was. And so, one thing about being able to rebuild that trust is, there's multiple levels of how that can happen, and having systems and processes in place where parents and teachers can all feel heard, that they have access to and an understanding of the issues, and that much of it is just being able to hear each other and to be able to honestly name what the issue is, so that we can work towards solutions. That's what I think is going to be able to build trust. And in addition to that, I think that we've had this long history, like Gary was saying too, of reflected in that we've always supported our schools through the elections and the levies. I want to see that continue. And the last point I wanted to make was that I think that parents didn't always know the resources that were available. So somehow being able to connect the dots for people to be able to know, how they can access things, how they can get the help and the support that they need, I'm for both teachers and for parents.
Okay, thank you. What specifically will be different about, this is a question for Gary, but Lyanna, you can answer it as well if you choose to. Gary, what specifically will be different about this superintendent vetting process than the last one?
Typically, there's kind of a historical process for superintendent searches. And, we'll get candidates in that may have been found by an outside agency. And that's one thing our board has to decide on, what route we're going to take as far as pursuing superintendent candidates. So and within that process, those agencies will investigate the individual, do background checks, et cetera, and they provide information to the board. And in the past, we've looked at that, and it has all seemed very relevant and to the individuals we've had. But I think moving forward, we need to go much deeper in vetting. The board needs to really look at what we want in an individual that's going to best serve our community, and ask any and all questions to anybody to try and get that information.
Thank you. And Lyanna, do you want to speak to that question?
Yeah, I want to speak to it in terms of, since I did go through the process of the chief of police hire. And I think, as far as using a recruitment firm to help us do that first layer of vetting candidates, as Gary was saying, it's really important, because it's a fit both ways. It's, a person who fits our community, that they're a fit for us and we're a fit for them. And, that takes a lot of conversation. It takes a lot of listening. And the first step is defining all of that. Like, defining who we are as a school community communicates what qualities and qualifications we're looking for in a superintendent. And if we do that really well, then that's going to feel pretty clear about who the fit will be. So, like, those are some of the lessons that I've learned, that it sounds like it can be a part of the process. And I really look forward, hopefully, to engaging in that.
Thank you. Next. Actively support non-binary and trans students. Did you hear the question?
No, you cut out. Could you?
Yeah, I saw a little note saying my deal was weird. It didn't exactly say that. In what ways can our school district actively support non-binary and trans students? Did that come across?
Yeah, that did.
Okay, good.
I'm really glad this question came up, because it is one of the values that I hold about being equitable, and what I was speaking to about people who have often been marginalized. And it is one of the goals stated in the long-term strategic plan of the district, which is Bozeman Public Schools will have effective systems in place for students to learn and staff to work in a safe and healthy environment. So it's one of the things that the district is really taking an even deeper look at with the creation of it's the Racial Equity Task Force, but it also includes those who are binary and trans as a part of that picture. And they're starting the deep work of that. And I have a lot of, interest and confidence of where that conversation will lead and how we can best support all students to feel welcome. Statistics show that those who are trans, non-binary, and are at the highest risk for suicide and mental health issues. If we care about everybody in our district, we support everybody in our district to feel like they have a place.
Gary?
Yeah, I would echo what Lyanna has said. And I guess if you go back to the core purpose of our district, which is a key component of our long-range strategic plan, is Bozeman Public Schools exist to provide an outstanding education that inspires and ensures high achievement so every student can succeed and make a difference in a rapidly changing world community. So I fully support that statement, and that's what I've tried to do my entire time on the board. And trans individuals or anybody else within the category that is involved in our equity task force have every right to be in school and get the same opportunities that all the other students get. If we don't do that, then we're not achieving to our core purpose, which is to meet the needs of every student. And those needs can vary. And I think our district is well prepared to provide that with counseling and social and emotional support. And, that's been evolving in our district very well for several years. And that will continue to evolve. But as the world changes, as some of these things change, we're going to have to change too. And I think our district is well prepared to do that and have the flexibility to make the changes within our district that we need so every student can succeed. I see no reason why we should discriminate or separate anybody within our school district from receiving the best education they can receive. So I will continue to advocate for that.
Thank you. Next question. Is there a policy or practice for orienting new trustees to the board? If you would be a new trustee, do you think there should be a practice or policy for orienting new trustees to the board?
I think that's my question.
Pardon?
Okay, I will go first in hopes of giving Lyanna some insight of what goes on. So yes, when a new person is elected to the board, our district will have board training materials and a session to orient that individual to really what the roles of the board are and what their role is. So while that's helpful, learning what goes on the board and how to navigate through things takes time. In addition to that, the Montana School Boards Association has educational programs for new trustees that's very well thought out, a lot of good information to provide them on really how to operate as an effective board member. And in addition, our board, we will have a mentor, another experienced board member, connect with that new board member, and they will be a mentor for that individual to provide them some background information as they need and just prepare them for upcoming board meetings, how we operate, how to view things. So yeah, some of it's on the job training, but we do have some pretty good systems in place to help people understand and get up to speed as quickly as they can on board activity and making board decisions, but that still takes time, so.
Thank you. And Lyanna?
Thanks, Gary. So in answering this question, what I want everyone here to understand is when I decided to run for the school board, it was a long process that started at least 5 years ago, because I've known different people on the board, and at different times where I felt like maybe I want to try that, I have just asked questions of different board members along the way and gotten advice and heard the parts that you're talking about, Gary. That was something that has been told to me along the way, that there is a lot of support for new trustees, and that's just helped me to define, do I have the time and capacity? Is this my interest? Do I really understand what it means to be a trustee? So when I entered this process, it was with that full knowledge of even though I don't know everything that I'm getting into, I feel like I made that decision very thoughtfully in trying to understand where my support would be, and how I could learn. And at this point, this is where I feel assured that that hopefully, if I am elected, that I can access all those different things.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Even with the COVID year, the district launched a new high school, a major change for the community. How is that going? What is your vision for ensuring that we maintain not one, but two centers for excellence at grades 9 to 12?
Well, I'll go first. I look back at opening Gallatin High this last year as an extremely beneficial event for our district, because if we would have had 2,400 students in one building, that would be a real challenge for students and teachers. So we had the benefit of spreading those students out, even within the facilities, the two facilities. I think we have some amazing principals at each school and staff. That was very well vetted, and there's experienced staff at Gallatin High and at Bozeman High. The teachers did a great job staffing both those buildings. They're developing a very good culture, kind of an individual culture for each school, but as one Bozeman. So it's just been a really good process. Yes, COVID affected that to some degree, but it would, we had a benefit of more space. So I think moving forward, I just see both are going to flourish and do well. We work very hard to keep our academic programs equitable and equal in both facilities. And some students can go back and forth. We maintained the Bozeman Charter School, Bridger Charter School, and that's thriving and doing well. So I think we're in very good hands.
Okay. And then this is going to be the last question, and then we'll have the 2-minute wrap up from each of you. What is the board's role in recognizing the need and supporting access to mental health for students and staff?
Sally, did Lyanna answer that one?
Yes, Lyanna,
Okay.
did you answer that?
No, I hadn't yet. I was just.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I need a keeper here. Bad moderator. Sorry, please.
Yeah. So the question was about launching the new high school and
How is that going?
This reminds me of when we had one middle school and then we opened up a second middle school. And, there's that first year of where just establishing those two separate communities, and yet it's serving the same community. And I feel like I believe that this year that it was a really good job done given all the challenges that had happened. And, so I'm really excited to see where this is going to lead, because that second high school has been a long time in coming. And, once again, that I have a lot of faith and trust in our professionals and how they're handling those changes. And, having two distinct high school communities but yet are, they serve all high school students in our community. And, so I'm looking forward to see how they're able to do that and sustain all the great programs that we've always offered, and also developing their own distinct personalities.
Okay. Last question. What's the board's role in recognizing the need and supporting access to mental health for students and staff?
Well, I'm glad,
Okay.
I'm glad that
Go
that
go ahead.
thanks, Gary. I'm glad that
Go
that
ahead.
included staff as well. And I am just going to repeat. I mean, Gary and I both have referred back to the core purpose about providing an outstanding education in a rapidly changing environment, but then also one of the goals about having effective systems in place for both students and staff to learn and work in a safe and a healthy environment. And so, that the way that it's all part of that goal, that it is important that staff feels safe and supported, that they have access to what they need, and that we're able to, because they're the ones that are serving our school population. And for students, it's one of those issues that we're a community, and schools are often the first place where we address these community needs, but there are also other agencies that work in connection with the school district. So how do we strengthen those connections and those relationships and the services that can be offered? I mean, that's just good community practice. That's also fiscally responsible, but we have an incredible nonprofit community and people who are serving in the schools. So that would be important to me, that we maintain and strengthen those relationships and make those connections, and that people understand where they can access what they need to serve their mental health and their health.
Gary.
Yeah, this is something that is at the top of the list for our district administrators and our teachers. Let's separate this. Student mental health is critical, and it's increasing, not just in our district, but across the state and the country. And that's something we are putting forth a lot of resources to address, with counselors and with partnerships with entities outside of the district to help us with that, after school programs, anything we can do to help those students that are struggling with social or emotional difficulties, mental health issues. Staff is same as well. We're concerned about the staff. This last year, we didn't lay off any staff through the COVID. We were fortunate to do that. We respected their safety concerns and allowed them to go fully remote or take a leave or whatever they needed to do. They have access to counseling and other issues if they're having issues of anxiety or depression or any other mental health issues, and that's covered by the district, so they have access to that. But I think that's a key element, I think, in all of education, which clearly affects the individuals themselves, but those around them based on how they behave in the classroom. And so that's one of the challenges that teachers have in the classroom, of really managing some of the behavioral issues. And I think our district has done a good job putting things in place to address that.
Okay, thank you. And now for the 2-minute concluding remarks. And who would like to start first?
I'll go ahead and go. So in closing, what I want to say is that that my experience on multiple levels in schools around the country, having worked as a facilitator, having worked as a teacher in this district, having been a parent and a volunteer, those are the perspectives that I bring as a school board trustee. And it kind of in response to a question that wasn't able to be voiced earlier about equity. This is important in our community because we are growing and changing rapidly. And I think the question of equity is a big one in our community, that we would be foolish to think that it's not going to impact us. There's wealth disparity. There are people who have been left out of the conversation and marginalized. And what's important is that we have equitable access to resources, that everyone has a chance to feel included, and that we give voice and attention to that. Many people have either felt that they couldn't participate because they either didn't know how to engage or they felt unwelcome. And I want to be the trustee that can offer that perspective and be that voice for people who have felt left out of the conversation. So in closing, I really hope I have the privilege to serve as a trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gary?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I think my view is to look at what we've learned from the past year and factor that into the last 16 years I've been on the board and look at the success of our district and get us back to that point where we are an innovative and progressive district that really looks out for every student in our district. And I would like to continue that. I do not have an ideological or political perspective or view on this. My focus is on students and learning, having good resources for teachers to do their job. I'm concerned about the workload teachers have. Now there's more and more being piled on their plates, teachers and administrators. And I think we need to take a serious look at that and really get down to the basics of what do they need to really do their job effectively. And there are many elements of that on many different perspectives. And that's why I support the consensus process that our district has used for several years to really address significant issues within our district. And every district has significant issues. We have them and we're going to continue to have them. But how you deal with those issues is critical. We can engage in a process where we're fighting among each other on how to resolve issues, or we can sit down together and come together and discuss them and work them out in a very positive manner, focusing on the best possible outcomes of any issue. And that's what our district does. It's been proven time and time again. I was in negotiations this week for one day and it worked extremely well. And it has in the past and will continue to work in the past. And I will advocate for that in the effort to provide the best education that our district can for our students.
Thank you both very much. Thank you for your politeness and your thoughtfulness. I'm most appreciative. We are going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to hear from Cheryl Tusken, who I see, and Doug Fischer, who I don't see, but hopefully he's here.
Yeah.
And the third is Jennifer Lammers. So the three of them will be in the next forum, and that will start in 5 minutes.
You were brilliant.
May hear me. How do I mute myself when they're talking?
Yep, let me show you. Okay. Let me do a couple of things. I got that phone in. Well, I'm on the other end, but muting yourself here.
Oh, there, okay. All right. Can everybody hear me now? Cheryl, can you unmute yourself? Good. And Jennifer, are you unmuted?
I am.
And Gary, are you unmuted?
But it's Doug for this one.
Or Doug, sorry. Doug, are you
I'm unmuted.
unmuted? Good, good. Okay. So this is Forum 2 with Jennifer Lammers, Cheryl Tusken, and Doug Fischer. And each of you gets a minute to introduce yourself. And who would like to go first?
I can go.
Okay. And we will time you, Jennifer, and you'll see the timing panels. Will you hold one up, Ann? She'll hold one up. So you'll see when you've, okay, good. So you have 90 seconds to introduce yourself.
So my name is Jennifer Lammers. I'm a parent, a local business owner, and an active community member. I have a 7th grade daughter at Sacagawea, and I have a freshman son at Bozeman High. Before that, we were a Longfellow Elementary School family. My husband and I own Nina's Tacos on Bertelsen with our business partners, Megan and Joe Romano. And with most of my time, I currently serve as the president of the One Valley Community Foundation Board. Through this organization, I have recently had the honor of supporting and assisting the management of the Southwest COVID Relief Fund, the Bridger Foothills Relief Fund, and I have worked with a variety of local organizations to address community needs and celebrate this special place we all get to call home. I want to thank the library and the League of Women Voters for providing this opportunity. And I want to thank our community for actively engaging in the school board election and for making our public schools a priority. Bozeman is a special place because our community cares and participates. I look forward to hearing from the other candidates and sharing my ideas and views with all of you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, who would be next? Cheryl or Doug?
I can go next.
Hi, Doug.
Hello. So thank you for, it's truly an honor to be here. And I am running because I fully believe in the district's mission, which is what's best for kids. As trustees, we can disagree about approaches, but when you have a board that is focused on that mission, you accomplish great things. And I believe that in order to have a first-rate city, you need a first-rate school district. And I am here to ensure, I'm hoping to ensure, that we maintain our first-rate school district. So my educational vision includes a safe, inclusive, and welcoming environment, a flexible and flexibility and options for various students as we emerge from this pandemic, and a commitment to excellence in all its aspects. So a little bit about me. I've been here for 11 years, but my wife has deep roots in this valley. I'm a science journalist who runs a nonpartisan news and science organization focused on our environment and health. And as a journalist, I'm used to asking tough questions, listening intently, and checking any bias or agenda at the door. I have 2 children who've come up through the schools. My daughter, Georgiana, graduated last year, and my son, Phineas, who is a sophomore at BHS. And I'd be remiss if my last 10 seconds, I failed to mention that I've been married to Stephanie Ewing for nearly 20 years this summer. And she's a soils chemist and a professor at Montana State.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Very good. I love your bow tie, by the way, Douglas. That's awesome. So my name is Cheryl Tusken. I have been here in this valley for almost 21 years now. I moved here to attend Montana State University, and I got my degree in physics with a minor in math in 2003. I met my husband while going to MSU. We were married a year later, and we have 2 wonderful sons who are now 14 and nearly 16. Our children have attended Longfellow, Whittier, and Chief Joseph middle schools. They also attended a charter school for when we were briefly in Colorado for a year. So we got to participate in that kind of setup and program, which was very interesting. As well as we've home educated for 6 years. So a couple years here, a couple years there over the course of it. And they're currently enrolled part-time in a private homeschool hybrid called Emerge. Every year we evaluate what is best for our kids academically and relationally, looking at the situations that are at hand, what they might need a little bit more of, if they need to be released so that they can move ahead in mathematics. So we look into all these sorts of things. As parents, we believe that we ultimately have the responsibility to lead and guide our children in their moral and character development, and education's always been a significant factor in this endeavor. So I really want to thank the Women League of Voters and the Bozeman Library for putting this forum together. And I really look forward to having this great discussion tonight with you guys.
Okay, thank you all. Here is the first question that's come up. What is your understanding of the critical race theory and equity? What is your opinion of these theories?
Jennifer.
I'm sorry, Sally. I believe that we all are planning to have 2 minutes to introduce our priorities and values
Of course,
as the planned question.
I am being a totally bad moderator all evening, so count on it. I'm sorry. Good heavens. Okay, I asked you to prepare the following question. Why are you running for the school board? And if you're elected, what will be your priorities? And who would like to start first?
I could go first.
Okay, thank you. You have 2 minutes.
So I first ran for the school board 6 years ago after helping my son's 4th grade class. It's hard to believe that was just 6 years ago, but 4th grade class successfully lobby for the legislature and the governor to create a state soil. It's the SCOBY series. It's fascinating soil. But watching the agriculture and science communities come together and support these students, and watching the lawmakers and their power to kind of shape lives, made me kind of acutely aware, in a way I hadn't been before, of the power of public service. And that has stayed with me. And as I meet with teachers and principals and parents and community groups, it made me aware that there's the need to stay focused on a mission. And when you stay focused on that mission, you can accomplish great things and for public good. And so my priorities, if I get reelected, are straightforward. I am a bridge. I see my role as kind of carrying what the community expects to the educators, and what educators need from the community to meet those standards. I'm not an education expert. I'm not here to push an agenda. I'm here to synthesize, to listen, to keep focused on, and ensure that every child emerges with the tools and the information they need to succeed in life. And so in the next year, we have 2 big tasks ahead of us. I'm sure we'll talk further about this, but for me, it's ensuring flexibility and options for various students as we emerge from the pandemic, and then finding the very best superintendent for the very best school district in the state. And I'm just looking forward to hearing what others have to say, and those are my expectations and my focus.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer?
Okay, and then I'll
Cheryl?
just go next. So I'm running for school board because I believe that children are the future of our country, and we have to work to ensure that they're challenged rigorously academically so that they have the tools to succeed in whatever they choose to pursue as careers. And thankfully, we had a really, really difficult year when people had to go to virtual learning. And thankfully, Bozeman was able to open back up to full in-person instruction. But there's still a lot of work to be done. Like right now, there's a lot of talk with universities like the California school systems, university systems that are talking about removing or lowering their SAT or ACT standards. But at the same time, we have to remain diligent to educate. Now's not the time to lower the bar, especially with having such excellent schools like Bozeman. In recent years throughout the nation, inaccurate history, such as the founding of the United States for the purpose of securing and maintaining slavery, has permeated our schools. One of the things I'm most concerned about is inaccurate history being taught to our public schools. Some states have even introduced mathematics curriculum that has sections dismantling racism in mathematics. But with my physics and mathematics background, I can tell you 100% that teaching a child to show their work in mathematics or to come up with the right answer is not discriminatory. It's educating. And we have to make sure that as these sorts of curricula are coming in to our school system across the country, that we have to say no to that. We have to say, you must learn proper mathematics, proper education. We can't over racialize every single lesson in the classroom. So it's really important to me that we have a non-biased history in our school systems.
Okay, thank you. And Jennifer?
Thank you. I'm running for trustee because I think parents and families deserve a strong voice in the governing of our public schools and an advocate for their concerns on the Board of Trustees. I believe that Bozeman schools are some of the best in the country, and I am truly impressed with the quality and dedication of our teachers and administrators. But I can't ignore the frustration, disappointment, and panic that many parents, grandparents, and guardians express when they're trying to find help or improve their child's educational experience. I've also been made aware, with growing intensity even in the last year, of the widespread perception that the Board of Trustees is increasingly disconnected from the realities many of our students and families are grappling with in present-day Bozeman. If elected, I will marry my skills in community building, knowledge sharing, and problem solving with my experience as the BSD7 parent who has regularly and recently volunteered in the classroom, led a parent association, and served on a number of district-wide committees. Specifically, I will work to improve communication for all students so that they can identify and access all of BSD7's outstanding educational supports and enrichment opportunities. I will see that there are visible and transparent mechanisms for raising additional concerns and issues with the district. And I will work to fill our vacant leadership positions with a professional who has strong communication skills and is committed to constituent voice and community participation in the governing of our schools. I believe that outstanding public schools that people want to send their children to are a key to creating shared values and establishing a shared identity for Bozeman as it continues to grow and diversify. And I believe that I have the skills and training and personal parent experience to ensure that BSD's promise is available to all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to the question portion where anybody in the audience can type a question in. And I'm going to run over the way to do that real quickly. And then we'll start with a question that's already in the chat. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a toolbar. If you can't see it, excuse me, try moving your mouse over the screen or press the Alt button. The toolbar should pop up. Q&A feature or chat feature will come up and you can type your question in and then hit enter to submit. So here's a question that came in with the last hour, but we'll bring it to this hour. What is your understanding of the critical race theory and equity? What is your opinion on these theories? And each of you has a minute. And who would like to be first?
I'll go ahead and start.
Thank you.
So critical race theory is an academic discipline that's built on the intellectual structure of identity-based Marxism. It has its roots in critical theory out of the Frankfurt School of Marxism. And it's a very concerning thing. What it does is kind of a choppy word salad type thing, where we're taking words like equity that sounds really good, and it sounds really similar to equality, but equity is equal outcomes, whereas equality is equal opportunity. So a lot of people are talking about these things. It sounds wonderful, and I understand how a lot of people love that, because I want diversity. I want people to have equal opportunity. But the critical race theory, one of the big proponents is Ibram X. Kendi, from his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And he says things like, in order to be anti-racist, you also have to be truly anti-capitalist. And that just doesn't align with America. And I don't think that Americans really understand what this critical race theory is. What it teaches is that we will be teaching our children, when this comes into our school, to separate them out into groups of the oppressed and the oppressors. And it makes the children only look at their races and separate into identity groups, instead of looking at each other based on the content of their character, instead of the color of their skin.
Next.
Give me time.
Well, I can follow up with that. And thanks, Cheryl. My understanding of critical race theory is quite different. It feel like in part it's become a bit of a shock word, and there's a lot of confusion around this. It's actually a friend of mine. It's a taught at a graduate level courses at the Montana State University. A friend of mine teaches it. It's an elective. It's definitely not part of our Bozeman School District curriculum. I haven't read any effort to work it in. I don't know. It's a graduate level course, and it focuses not on attending to episodic racism. It really focuses on tending to systemic racism. So it looks at the lived realities of different communities that are systemically oppressed, and I don't, that's, so it's kind of like, if you look at, say, and you can use math to actually do this, and you look at say white versus non-white populations, you look at the proportion of that proportion, white versus non-white, at higher ed, in the higher ed, at Montana State, for instance, and then you look at that proportion, that same ratio in say the state's prison population, and they tend to be exactly flipped. And the question that I think critical race theory looks at is, why is that? And that's about it. I don't see, I see a lot of kind of emotion attached to it, but it's looking at, institutional racism, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
So I guess, as you can see, critical race theory is both understood and used differently depending on who's speaking and to their audience. The way I look at it right now is that our country is grappling with a number of crucial issues about inclusiveness, equity, fairness, and our national identity. And I don't think it's really so important to focus on the big headline words or the hot buttons, but to look at the shared values. And as a trustee, I think the important thing for me to promote is an environment where every student and every family feels at home in a Bozeman school, and that every opinion is respected, whether it is from, regardless of your race, your religion, your ethnicity, your orientation, your identity, your political affiliation, your economic status, whether your parents were born here, or whether they chose to move here last week to raise their families. I think the most important thing for Bozeman to focus on is creating that culture of respect and critical thinking and academic exploration. and not to get caught up in the noise and the buzzwords of the world outside, and focus on who Bozeman is and who Bozeman wants to be.
Thank you. This was a question that was asked in the last hour and was asked again in this one. Can you please explain how you understand the duties of a school board trustee and describe how your experience, not your perspective, your specific experience, would contribute to the successful functioning of the board? Jennifer?
I'll go first. The Board of Trustees is the governing board for our school district, and they take a high-level approach to the policies and practices and efficacy of the delivery of education in Bozeman. And I see the role of the trustees as to be both an advocate for the school district in the community, seeking resources, getting input, and explaining decisions, as well as an advocate for the community to the school district, and being an accessible communicator of community concerns and community needs. So I think the role of the trustees is to create a bridge and a sense of shared ownership of both the success and the obstacles to education in Bozeman.
Jennifer, that was a fantastic explanation. I couldn't have said it any better. I look at the role of the school board as being that bridge, as Douglas has also said, being that bridge between school system and the community. I personally feel like I would love to see more parent involvement and being able to say, hey, I'm here for you. I really want to hear what you have to say. I know sometimes it feels for the community that is a very large school system. There's many moving parts and pieces. There's many schools involved, many teachers, and want to really be able to hear, both sides of what the needs of the community are, as well as, how can we match that with the needs of the school as well, and in connecting those resources for sure.
Okay, and Doug?
Well, I'm glad to say, I think we all agree on this. This question is great. So let me just share a story then. On Tuesday, I went straight from a chamber forum where we talked about, various things from critical race theory to, all these kind of concepts. And then I went straight to an elementary school's parent advisory council meeting. And there it was fascinating. The principal, it's one of our schools where the school has twice as many English language learners as both our high schools combined. And the principal is talking to the parents, struggling with how does he bring these kids up and to the same standards as everybody else. It's not about creating a separate track or standards or anything or tearing anyone, it's just how does he lift everybody up, and what resources does he need for that? And then the parents started talking about how do they organize a fun run when some of their kids are doing remote and it's just a topsy-turvy world. And so it's, I think as a trustee, it's important to take those messages, to the community, and again, like we said, be a bridge. And I think that's how you do it. You get into the schools and you listen.
Thank you. Next question. Do the schools have options to help students that may arrive at? Yeah, everybody answered that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do the schools, I'm on it. Finally, do the schools have options to help students that may arrive at school hungry?
I could start that, but I know just enough to probably be dangerous. Yes, the bottom line is yes. We have a robust food program. We have a building services, whole building behind Bozeman High School that with a kitchen where they're making ingredients from scratch. It's locally sourced to the extent they can, and we also have federal resources from the USDA to keep to provide a breakfast to kids, who arrive hungry, and provide lunch. And I know that every school, that there are little, the building administrators have drawers where kids can come in and grab a bar to go. High school has that. And so there's resources there that are available. There's also, we're working with the Rotary Club on helping, frankly, homeless or unhoused students, kind of make sure that they arrive, and can get food and can be able to concentrate and focus on learning. That's our focus, is making sure kids arrive and have what they need to focus, to learn.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl or Jen?
So while I'm less familiar with the specific federal programs and the mechanisms by which we formally provide school through district funds, I do know that we have a number of nonprofit and community organizations that work to support the schools. We have the Backpack program, which allows students who are food insecure to take food home on every Friday to help them get through the weekends. I've recently been able to work with a wonderful program at the Whittier School that was started by their counselor, a parent volunteer, and their former principal. And it's called Grocery Plus. And this is a program by which families can request special perishable home items and food items that they can't necessarily easily get through the other services in town. And in this program, what we were able to do was tap into community resources, both nonprofit, corporate, and philanthropic. 100 Strong, a women's giving group, has donated $10,000 to expand that program to other schools. And this is something I'm really passionate about, is tapping into the generosity and services outside of the school district to help support our community, whether with homelessness or food insecurity. I think that the public schools can't do everything, but they can be a conduit and a connector to those others who are willing and able to address community needs of our most vulnerable.
Cheryl?
Yes, and just to echo what they've already both have said, I know that we do have those the food insecurity programs. So, children can come to school a little early and make sure that they have their breakfast, which is super important resource to continue providing. I'm really thankful that we've been providing that for all these years. And they also have the reduced rate lunch programs that is also of huge value to a lot of people who are food insecure as well. So.
Okay. And this is a question that was asked before, and it's being asked again. What are your opinions on continuing the mask mandate?
I'll go. I am and have been a strong advocate that in-classroom learning is the best place for our students to learn. And I think that there are a number of our teachers and our student and family populations that feel safe enough to go to school because the mask mandate is still in place. The CDC still recommends masks for almost all student activities. And I don't think we yet have a full body of evidence to say that we can safely eliminate masks. That said, I'm watching for that evidence. I am looking at the experiences of other districts and other schools, and I am looking for the scientific data that will let us know when we can return to face-to-face learning, not just in-person learning.
Okay. Doug, Cheryl?
I can go. I like that distinction of face-to-face versus in-person. That's a good phrasing there.
That was good.
So this, I think, is one of the instances where what the district does well, frankly. We are turning to experts. We are, this is not something as a trustee I'm going to make it alone, or in a box. We put together in November, we put together a committee, of medical experts, county health officials, teachers, parents, doctors, to look at where we are with COVID, what the science is saying, and they have put together a matrix to help us, guide our decisions on in-person learning. We are going to bring that band back together in July, and we're going to look again at where we are, what the science is saying. We're not seeing a lot of transmission in schools, but apparently that's because we are masked up and people are being really careful about this. So we need to look and see. And as vaccination rates, it's going to be an entirely different ballgame in the fall. We're going to rely on experts to give us some advice. We're going to have a public discussion on that, and then we're going to, make a decision, go forward.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Great. So I don't support the mask mandates. I believe that the mask should be of personal choice for the people who feel more comfortable wearing them. There is a lot of, the jury's still not out on whether they've been helping or hindering or not doing anything at all. And with such little data showing, their efficacy, I really think that there's far more harm being done psychologically and sociology with the social structure of it for children. And I think that it's really important for the kids to be able to see each other face to face. The viral load that children do carry, if and when they do get COVID, is very, very low. And so their transmissibility rates is much lower. I believe that every family should have the choice for themselves to decide to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. And I'm hoping that our County Board of Health will lift the mandates and restrictions to follow suit with most of the other counties in our state. We're not seeing any huge breakouts in Billings. They have lifted their mandates, as well as other major cities around our state. So I'm hopeful.
Okay, thank you. What do you see as the board's role in restoring trust among various stakeholders in the BSD7 community?
I
Could
think
you
that's
repeat
why
that
I'm
question?
running.
Pardon?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure, be glad to. What do you see as the board's role in restoring trust among various stakeholders in the BSD7 community? Who would like to start? Go ahead.
I kind of jumped in on that, sorry. Honest trust is one of the main reasons running. I BSD7 and a lot of administrators and our teachers, but the way the last year unfolded really, really strained those relationships. And I think unfortunately left our administrators and teachers in a bad place and let the community didn't represent them well in the community. And I think that our parents and teachers, our parents and students didn't feel heard. Robert's Rules is not a welcoming environment for two-way conversation. And just being able to talk and then be thanked and moved on to the next caller doesn't validate the experiences we had. And so I really do think the trustees need to own the pain in our community that the management of last year's decisions caused, and really work to look at how do we interact and gain feedback from our parents, from our students, from the wider community in ways that are authentic and actionable. It's just not enough to have a meeting and let it go on for 8 hours. I think we really have to say we are committed to changing the mode of communication, and we are committed to creating mechanisms that allow for a feedback loop that can genuinely impact the outcome and the direction of public education in Bozeman.
Next.
I'll jump in. I think we this year, no question, put serious stresses on our district. It exposed fault lines all across and through society. I think it's continuing to do so. I think our job, and we I think we've made some mistakes, and we can own those. I think though we have started to do that journey by through improved communication, through we have new leadership at the district, and Casey Bertram. Even though he's our interim superintendent, but he's doing a fantastic job. I would suggest in communicating to the parents and being open about what we've got. We've got this. We've returned to a consensus process that has served our district so well in the past, with teacher negotiations, everything from teacher negotiations to our matrix, our reopening matrix, and I think we need to continue to kind of go forward with that, and continue to be open and accessible, and bring the community in, and listen to experts, follow the data. And I think as time as we launch a new search for a more permanent. All right, I'll stop here.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's really important that that the community and teachers are feeling like they're both being heard at the school board level, that that there's good camaraderie, that there's good, somebody said that just because you're communicating doesn't mean that the other person is being heard. Like, you might be saying words, but we need to be able to hear them from their heart, and to really weigh these things. And I do agree that that these Zoom meetings have been very, very difficult to be able to have a personal connection with their school board when very large decisions are being made to either keep the schools closed, go to virtual, go to a hybrid meeting, or going into the full blown. I know there was a lot of opinions on both sides. A lot of people didn't want the schools open at all, and some people want them open all the way. So it's really important that we go back to in-person meetings, and that we have a lot of parent interaction, making sure that they have enough time to know what will be discussed on the agenda, so that they have plenty of time to clear their schedules, come up when there's big decisions being made, and that it's communicated to the parents that, hey, we are going to discuss this thing, you might be interested in coming. So that's a really important thing that I'd like to see.
Next question. What role does your church play in your platform?
Well, I know that question was specifically for me. I saw that question pop up on the second to last question, which is why I got distracted, because I was in the middle of answering that question. But I don't know, my church doesn't have any role in this discovering my platform. I have my own personal beliefs and views that I've formed over my entire 40-year lifetime. And I come from a place, I believe we all have belief systems that we work on. I always come from a small government, small intrusion point of view that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with my church. So just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jen and Doug, do you want to respond to that question?
So I'm sure there's a Mark Twain quip in here somewhere about church and politics and whatnot, but I can't come up with one off the top of my head. I also, this is a nonpartisan job, and I think it also applies to, religious beliefs and other things you bring in. It's like, I think as trustees, again, it's not about you. It's not about your beliefs. It's not about bringing an agenda or carrying anything in it. So I don't bring politics in. I don't bring religion in. It's really, and it's also, to me, this highlights the need to get out and talk to the community. So I've been out knocking on doors this campaign, and it's just been great to hear a diversity of views and opinions and questions, and then to kind of synthesize those and carry those forward with me. That's how that's what I bring in.
Okay, Jen?
I don't have a formal church, although I do consider myself to have a good spiritual relationship with our Creator. I try to live by two basic tenets: love thy neighbor and treat everyone as you wish to be treated yourself. And that's going to come with me as a trustee. It's going to come with me as a assistant soccer coach. It comes with me everywhere I go. But I also think the really important thing to remember is that every trustee is entitled to their personal beliefs, but they are not in this position to pass their belief down to the school system or to an individual student. We are there to ensure that our students get the critical thinking skills, the academic education, and the empathy and compassion to be good, successful future leaders. So what we believe or where we spend our worship is not as important than the behavior we model for our students.
Thank you. And here's a question again from the first hour that was repeated for you. How can the school district actively support non-binary and trans students?
I'll jump on that one if you want. So BSD 7 has stated in both its strategic plan and in numerous places that we are committed to providing a safe and welcoming environment where every student can learn and achieve their potential. This is a right afforded all students, regardless of gender, identity, or orientation. And to deliver on this promise, I look to a phrase I was taught when I worked with the special needs community. And in their advocacy, they say, nothing about us without us. So in order to support and meet the needs of our trans population, we need to speak with them. We need to invite them to the table and help determine the path that makes them feel most safe, most welcome, and allows them to achieve their potential.
Thank you. Doug or Cheryl?
It's hard to follow that, but I totally agree. I mean, it's our job as a trustee, as a district, as a community, is to ensure that every student gets, emerges with an education that allows them to succeed in life. And it's our job to maintain a welcome and inclusive, a safe learning space for every student. It's very simple. And to the extent we have roadblocks in the way, we need to address those. It's the focus on making sure every student gets the education they need. That's the priority.
Okay, Cheryl?
Yeah, it's just very well said by both Jennifer and Douglas. Believe that everyone should have the total equal welcome, equal opportunity to participate in every class, and make sure that that there's no bullying that's going on. Make sure that we're teaching the children to treat each other with respect. We all come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs. We have different things going on, and it's a matter of respect and treating one another kindly, with kindness. Just like Jennifer said, with treating others as you want to be treated. Super important that there's no discrimination, that everybody is valued because they are truly valued. And continue helping them out if there's any extra resources that they would need because of anything that's going on in their lives, that we'd be able to provide those resources and make sure that they're feeling truly welcome in the community.
Okay. And what attributes do you seek in a new superintendent? Hello? Yes, Jen.
I'll jump. I think first and foremost, a commitment to regular, clear communication. I think that we all suffered for the lack of that. And we have all seen the improvement since Casey has taken on the position and really improved the frequency and quality of communication. I also would really look for someone who practices inclusive leadership, where they're not looking for a top-down command and control style, but they are collaborative and they are a conscious listener to their teachers, to their principals, to their parents, to the students. And finally, I really think I'm looking for someone who has an interest in creating practices and policies and infrastructure that embed the values of communication and inclusivity in the institution. We saw when we lost Rob that some of the things we assumed were district-wide and part of Bozeman were diminished. And so I want to make sure that we don't lose that key core competency if we have to change leaders again down the road.
Thank you. Cheryl or Douglas?
Go ahead,
So,
Doug.
look, communication, I think, is a key. We need an excellent communicator in this position. We need someone who can kind of quickly, if he doesn't or she doesn't understand or isn't familiar with the Bozeman culture, can quickly become familiar. I think one of the things we learned with the previous superintendent is that we had kind of assumed that this culture Bozeman culture of consensus and communication was kind of baked into our district. And I think, that was maybe not the case. And so we need to make sure that we have a leader who is committed to consensus, to seeking a broad array of opinions and information. And then we need someone who can be a strong leader, but also be a compassionate one.
Okay, Cheryl?
Great. Yeah, I think that communication has been really emphasized this whole evening. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I'm a person that just, you're not going to irritate me if you over communicate the thing, but if it's too vague, if it's too nebulous, if you're too standoffish, it's really, really hard for me to understand where you're coming from. And it's part of relationship building. And it's not only relationship building with the school board and with the school staff, but also with the community. And as a superintendent, you're going to be pulled in a lot of different directions. You're going to be, feeling beholden to the parents, to the students, to the school board, to the teachers unions, and then all the support staff as well, the auxiliary staff. And we'll be looking for somebody who will be able to balance those different tugs and know when to lean one direction versus another direction. Someone who would be able to hear all opinions, all viewpoints, and not just one small, louder type of group, but be able to listen to the people who aren't as loud, but have very valid points to be made as well. So
Thank you so much. And thank you all for your answers to the questions. Our time for questions is up. And who would like to begin with 2 minutes of concluding remarks? Doug?
I can start. Because Jen has gone first so many times.
Where to go?
So I am honored to have served this community for 6 years as a trustee, and I am deeply grateful to the League of Women Voters and to the Bozeman Public Library for hosting this forum. I'm thrilled to see so much engagement and interest around this election. I think it's been almost 20 years since we've had this kind of interest in a school election. So I firmly believe that Bozeman has the best school district in the state, and we are emerging from a difficult year. We have some big tasks ahead of us. And so this conversation today was really helpful, I think, in hearing from the community and hearing from everyone about where we're going to go with like a superintendent and other priorities. I think we also have extraordinary opportunities ahead of us to grow and to improve our district, to grow and improve really our sense of what normal is. And that's whether that's our education model or our efforts at diversity or inclusion and equity. My focus has always been on the kids, and I'm focused on creating a safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environment. And I've spent my 6 years on the board as a listener, as a bridge between the community, as an advocate for excellence. You know, I want students to think critically with the freedom to grow intellectually and emotionally. I want each student to emerge with the tools necessary to make a difference in this world. I hope that's your dream too, and I hope I've earned your trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl, Jennifer?
Yeah, so I just want to say also thank you so much for this opportunity to chat. It's been just a delight to be able to have this conversation with the three other candidates on this time, and then also the ones up the previous hour. Thank you for the opportunity for bringing this to the community. I love children. I think education is super, super important. Our children are our most precious resource, and it's really important to me to be able to assist in the growth of our community, teaching children critical thinking skills, logic, making sure that history stays accurate, objective, and unbiased, making sure that we don't put political sway into our curriculum so that children can form their own opinions about the failures of the past and the triumphs of the past. Winston Churchill said that, to paraphrase poorly, those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And that's really important. We have to remember our history and remember it accurately, and so that we can move forward correctly. And it's really important that that we plant, good seeds in the hearts of our children to look at one another with respect, with love. I believe that true diversity is viewpoint diversity. It doesn't matter your race, religion, background, socioeconomic status. What matters is the viewpoint that you bring to the table. And I believe that people should be challenged academically. Their children should be challenged academically. We have to keep the standards high. Bozeman's been amazing, but now's not the time to back off of our standards. We have to lean into them. And I believe that the children are more than capable. And I look forward to this next year.
Thank you. And Jen?
So I believe in the power and potential of outstanding public schools to serve as a meeting place and a melting pot that really nurtures our shared values and our shared community identity. And I'm committed to working with every single member of our school community to ensure that the future of Bozeman schools remains one filled with high academic success, warm and nurturing classroom environments, and are a source of community pride. As our schools go, so will Bozeman go. And because of that, I can see no more worthy institution to dedicate my time and skills to. And I hope that I have a chance to serve our kids and our community as a trustee. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of the candidates tonight for being here and providing your perspectives. And thank you to the public guests. It's not easy to do Zoom. I hate Zoom. I'm over Zoom. I want it to be done, and it's like it will never end, but it is what we have. And I so appreciate everyone's tolerating the funkiness of the whole thing. I also want to thank our sponsors, the Bozeman Public Library and Beth Boyson and the League of Women Voters. Both of us have collaborated, the League and the library have collaborated on a lot of forums, and our push always is to have an educated electorate. So we urge you to vote and make your voices heard. And thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Leave.